feels restless, impulsive, culturally online, emotionally overcaffeinated, and deeply allergic to corporate adulthood. There's no aesthetic coherence, no niche clarity, not even thematic discipline. So what is Born to Ramble? That's exactly it. That's totally it. What's the frequency, Kenneth? That's Born to Ramble. Welcome to Born to Ramble with me, Nikki, your hostess. I'm so happy to be here today in my own bedroom. And I'm really excited because I have some news. And I wrote it all down so I don't forget to tell you because there's 4 things I got to tell you. I just remember there's 5. First thing, I got a sponsor. Yes, it's myself. But I figured out how to get my Born to Ramble shop on my Substack Born to Ramble website. So now Born to Ramble, my shop, is going to sponsor my Born to Ramble Substack. So I'm super excited about that. Second, I popped the lenses out of these knockoff Ray-Ban sunglasses. So now it looks like I have glasses. And it's crazy because sometimes I feel like when I'm not wearing them, the words are blurry. So they're actually working. Next, I'm going to get a new background because I don't want perverts looking at pictures of my beautiful son. So I'm going to get a new background. So that's just an idea to be continued. And finally, I got 2 trolls. So that means I'm pretty much making it in podcasting, even though I have people watch my videos for only 20 or so seconds. I still got 2 trolls. So that means some sick freaks out there are watching it longer than 20 seconds. The exciting thing about my trolls is the first one asked me, he said, "How old are you that you're wearing braces?" And I thought to myself, he actually has to ask how old I am. So I responded 250 years old. My second troll asked me, so he commented on a video where I was talking about no longer believing in love, like long-term matrimonial love to the end of your life, right? He commented on that video, "Another one dying alone." But the problem was this fool spelled dying, D-I-E-I-N-G. And everyone knows that ing ending doesn't come after a vowel. And this is really important because the key distinction between apes and humans is our ability to communicate in complex language. But I'm not worried because he has not evolved into a full human being yet. So that's kind of like double layer exciting news. Not only do I have a troll, but my troll was an ape, which goes to show you that even apes can use keyboards. All right. Moving into our story. So today's story, I usually don't write fiction, but this is a fiction story I wrote, and it's loosely based on people I actually know. This is probably one of my favorite things I've ever written. It's tentatively called "A Skeleton Walks into the Office and Hits It Out of the Park." I'm really bad with titles, but I'm getting into this new era. In the olden days, titles used to be kind of mysterious. Like it would be called Hidden. And then people are like, "Oh, what's that about?" But now your title has to basically tell the whole story or else people won't read it because they have low attention spans and they devolved into apes and they're trolling me, asking me if I'm going to die alone and misspelling dying. Anyway, here we go. And a word from our sponsor at the end of the podcast, all right? This is a work of fiction. Any resemblance to persons living or dead is a result of them being my actual coworkers, former coworkers. Symptoms are embellished, personalities are not. Jim didn't feel well enough to drive himself, so on Monday, his wife dropped him off at the office at 11:30 a.m. He walked into the building in a haze, armed with his laptop and an insulated lunchbox. Janice had packed him a thermos of chicken noodle soup, 3 packets of Emergen-C, a brownie, and a love note. "Feel better, honey. XOXO." People passing in and out of the secured work area swiped their key cards across beeping security pads, and the door locks released. Bill Loudon used one of his crutches to hold the door for Jim. "Hey, buddy, you decided to come to work." Jim circled past reception. "Morning, Jim. How you feeling?" Carly called after him, waving her one good arm. Navigating through a labyrinth of cubicles, Jim was serenaded by the hammering on keyboards and ringing telephones, punctuated by coughing, nose blowing, and throat clearing. His cubicle was surrounded by 5 other cubicles. Well, actually, it was surrounded by 187 cubicles. But the cubes had been arranged in pods, sort of like in elementary school. He paused at the cubicle's threshold and took in the sight of his dual computer monitors framed in Post-it notes. He couldn't help but feel slightly overwhelmed. Call Joanne. Albuquerque, 1 o'clock Monday. The opinions of others do not define me. Issue 247654. Issue 247732. I am courageous and I stand up for myself. Revise Albuquerque account proposal for Smith. I am not broken. I am breaking open. "Morning, Jim," his cubicle neighbor called. "Hey, Monroe." "Hey, come here." Jim took 2 steps from his doorway to Monroe's. Monroe was 6'2", with long red hair and calves the size of small tree stumps. She had begun transitioning late last year, and Jim knew he needed to start referring to Monroe as she, her, but it was so hard when they'd been cube mates for over 10 years and friends long before that. Until 4 years ago, Monroe was a drunk, a fun but at times belligerent drunk. When he finally got sober, the company footed the bill for 8 days of inpatient. He admitted to himself and everyone else that he'd always known he was in the wrong body. Monroe came out of treatment and started dressing like Lily Tomlin in 9 to 5, which would have been appropriate had it not been 2015. Monroe's typical look consisted of ill-fitting mid-length skirts, low-heeled gray pumps, and flowery, loose-fitting blouses. "Dude," Monroe said, "Friday was a shit show after you left. Did you hear about Smith?" Jim shook his head. "He had a fucking heart attack in his car and died." Jim was barely listening through a fog of congestion and cold medicine. "He was here till 10, and then he croaked in his car. He didn't even get out of the parking lot." Jim coughed 37 times. "Shit, man," Monroe said, handing Jim some tissue. "You're a mess. Back it up, will ya? I don't want to get sick." "Who's working Albuquerque if Smith's gone?" "Fuck if I know." Monroe fingered her navy clip-on earrings. "I'm not doing it. They asked me, they got another thing coming. I have to check my email." "Hey, did you see the game yesterday?" Jim ignored Monroe, went back to his cube, and fired up his computer. He had accumulated 97 emails from the time he left Friday at 6. The instant messenger icon flashed in the toolbar. It was Rhonda, his supervisor. "Got a minute?" "Sure," Jim typed. "Step into my office, please." Jim left his cube, took 2 steps across the granite-colored carpet, and entered Rhonda's office. She had a door, real walls, and a window. The works. "Jim, I understand you were out sick this morning." He struggled to keep his eyes open. "Yeah, I've been down with a cold or sinus infection, maybe." She turned to her computer screen. "I'm just concerned. You aren't hitting your numbers, and it looks like you only worked 49.789 hours last week." She looked at him, waiting for a response. "Talk to me about that, Jim." I've been sick, so I left Friday at 6. I went straight to urgent care." She didn't look away from her screen. "You know, Jim, there are people here who take their jobs very seriously, and then there are people who just don't take anything seriously." She turned her head 10 degrees to the left, away from her computer screen to look him in the eye. "I understand," Jim said, and then went into a coughing fit that ended in blood spatter on his hands. Rhonda handed him some tissue. "Jim, I really like you. I do. You're a good worker when you're here." He nodded. "I guess that's really all I have to say." He got up and went back to his cube, where he struggled with the foil packaging of an Emergen-C packet. By the time the powder made it into his bottled water, he had coughed 42 more times, blown his nose 3 times, and gotten snot on his keyboard and shirt sleeves. A meeting reminder popped onto his computer screen. 15 minutes till Albuquerque conference call. He opened his proposal for Albuquerque and printed it out, then emailed copies to Rhonda and Sean, the project manager. He considered emailing Smith, but decided that would be senseless now that he was dead. Jim sent Monroe an instant message. God help me, here I go. Monroe messaged back, give him hell. Jim gathered his laptop and made his way to the conference room. Pat from finance was already there. Hey, Jim, I heard you were sick this morning. Feeling better? Pat's head was wrapped in bandages. She had a brain tumor removed at 5:30 a.m. Friday morning, and the company had granted her the day of surgery plus 8 hours off for recovery. She really didn't have to come in today, but Pat was, as Rhonda had just said, one of the workers who took her job very seriously. Rhonda and Sean entered the conference room. How is everyone today? Rhonda asked in an imperative rather than interrogative tone. Steroids and constipation, but glad to be back at work, Pat smiled. Sean and Jim did not respond. I'm sure you all heard we lost Smith, Rhonda said, dialing into the conference call. Welcome to your meeting, said the automated voice on speaker. Please dial your meeting access code. Rhonda dialed a 9-digit code and continued, looking directly at Jim. This shouldn't change anything as far as this project goes, except that we're all going to have to work just a little bit harder. Just then, the security pad at the conference room door beeped and in walked Smith. He was a skeleton, but there was no mistaking it. Those were Smith's Echo walking shoes and Smith's pleated khakis. Those were definitely Smith's veneers. The skeleton was wearing Smith's glasses, and when the mandible began moving, the voice was unmistakably Smith's. Thought it was going to be late, he said. So sorry about that. Got caught up in an issue with marketing. Let's get started. The skeleton began unpacking his laptop and then plugged it into the projector. 3 voices from the phone chimed in, joining the meeting from Albuquerque. Smith killed the presentation. Absolutely killed it. When the meeting was over, Rhonda eyed Jim. I need to talk to you. He nodded. Clear the room, she said to everyone else. Sean followed Smith out the door. That was incredible! He held his hand up, waiting for a high five. Smith raised his bony hand and smacked it against Sean's fleshy palm. Pat gathered her things and then, noticing blood on the chair she'd been sitting in, reached for the bandages on her head. Oh, shoot, she said. Rhonda, let me just clean this up and then I'm going to need to take 10 to change these bandages. Not a problem, Rhonda said, all the while glaring at Jim. Once the room was empty, Rhonda closed the door and sat back down at the table across from Jim. You know, after this meeting, it is crystal clear to me where you stand with this company. You're over there suckling a bottle of I don't even know what, and here's Smith, a goddamn corpse, giving the presentation of a lifetime. Rhonda hit the speakerphone button and dialed what Jim knew was the HR extension. Tom, I need you to come and escort Jim Peterson out of the office right now. Outside, Jim sat on the curb and dialed Janice. Honey, I need you to come and get me. He hunched over and fell asleep in the fire lane. He awoke to Janice shaking him back to consciousness and then helping him into the car. I lost my job. Saying it out loud, Jim felt a shred of something like the opposite of fatigue. The feeling turned to a memory. He was 8 years old, boarding a plane. It was his first plane ride, his first trip to Disneyland. Now, sitting next to his wife in her Hyundai, for the first time in a long time, he wasn't sure where he was heading, but weirdly, it felt okay. Oh no! Oh, Jim, I'm so sorry. Shall we get drunk? Janice looked confused. Honey, I only have a half hour and then I have to be back to work. Call in. Say you're taking me to the ER. Please, Janice. He wanted to run with this feeling. Janice took her phone from her purse, and as she explained to her manager that she wouldn't be back until the morning, Jim tried to hide his expanding joy, which was difficult because he was feeling better and better by the second. Janice drove to a liquor store where they bought sour apple liqueurs, frozen strawberry daiquiris, and a bottle of vodka. They went home and drank all the fruity drinks. Neither was serious about the vodka. By the time Jeopardy came on, Jim had completely recovered from his cold. Sitting next to Janice on the couch, he realized they hadn't even been home together to watch Jeopardy or any TV since they bought the house 7 years ago. Jim's phone rang. It was Monroe. What the fuck, dude? Are you okay? Actually, Jim said, I don't think I've ever been better. Really? Monroe paused. I mean, yeah, you're free now. That place almost killed me. I know. Shit, I'm really gonna miss you, Monroe said. You can leave too, Monroe. Nah, I got a lot of expenses coming up. Thailand and all that. They've got you by the balls, Jim joked. For now, they laughed. Want to stop by on Sunday, Jim asked. I think I'm going to fire up the grill in the outdoor kitchen I've never used. I'll be there. Jim hung up and turned to Janice. You know, we'll probably have to move. Downsize. You're never here anyway. Jim squeezed her hand and kissed her. I love you, she said. Something caught Jim's eye, a small redwood cube on the mantel. Hey, what's that? It's Buddy. Janice paused. He died 2 months ago. I had him cremated. Oh, Buddy. Jim slept until 9:30 a.m. on Tuesday morning. Janice was already gone to the bank, where she worked as a teller. He considered looking for a job on the internet, but then opted to go to Lowe's and fill out a paper application. He was immediately offered the position of garden center supervisor, but declined and requested to work as an overnight stalker instead. Since then, Jim has made several friends, accumulated no time off, but never works more than 32 hours a week. He regularly has satisfying sex with his wife in their tiny rental house. Recently, they adopted a puppy named Pokey. Thank you for listening to my story. And now, a word from our sponsor. Are you looking for a super cool t-shirt? Then visit the Born to Ramble shop, where we have tons of cute, funny, cynical, sarcastic t-shirts, and more are coming all the time. Soon to come in the Born to Ramble shop is Mommy and Me shirts. Crazy shirts that you can wear with your kid. That way, everyone will know you're together.